The screen lit up with headlines screaming betrayal, hashtags storming across feeds like wildfire. Daniel said, "They erased me before even knowing me." His voice cracked as he scrolled through posts, faces of strangers shaping his destiny. Once hailed as a decorated veteran, now he was a villain, a trending punchline carved into digital stone. The noise was merciless, each comment a blade. A woman's voice broke through. Emma said, "Daniel, stop looking." But he couldn't. Every scroll revealed more venom. Jacob, his old comrade, called once. Then silence followed, a void louder than war. The storm outside mirrored the chaos inside, rain thrashing the glass while Daniel trembled. Screens glowed in the dark, illuminating a man undone not by battle, but by strangers who never saw his sacrifice. Daniel said, "It feels like I never existed." His phone buzzed again, another notification, another nail in his coffin of reputation. Daniel sat frozen, scrolling endlessly, his breath uneven. The words weren't just text. They were verdicts. Emma said, "You were letting them bury you alive." His eyes burned with exhaustion as he whispered, "They already have." The digital mob showed no mercy, dissecting his past, twisting truths into daggers. He thought of Jacob, the silence on the other end of the phone, once his brother in arms, now a ghost in this battle. Daniel said, "Even silence feels like betrayal." Emma leaned against the wall, heart torn between reaching him and retreating from the storm consuming him. The rain outside became a drum beat to his unraveling thunder, cracking as if echoing his shame. In this moment, Daniel wasn't a veteran, a hero, or even a man. He was a headline, a target, erased by strangers' judgment. Phone buzzed again, another alert. Daniel flinched as if struck. Emma said, "Turn it off." But he couldn't surrender control to silence. His voice was raw. "If I stop watching, it keeps growing." The living room felt like a cell, walls closing tighter with every headline flashing on the screen. Memories of service bled into this moment, marches, medals, camaraderie, all drowned by hashtags and hate. His medals sat ignored, glinting faintly under lamplight, now worthless trinkets against the storm of judgment. Emma's eyes glistened as she whispered, "They never saw you, Daniel. They never will." He looked at her, empty, and said, "Then maybe I was never real to them." Daniel leaned forward, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. The phone buzzed again, relentless. Emma said, "Please, Daniel, you're disappearing into their hate." He shook his head, murmuring, "It's the only thing left of me." He thought of Jacob, once loyal, now gone. His silence louder than bullets. Daniel whispered, "I fought wars, Emma. But this war I can't fight." The rain pounded harder, lightning splitting the sky, flashes lighting the living room in violent bursts. Emma closed her eyes, the sound of thunder masking her sob. Daniel felt the weight of thousands crushing his chest, strangers he never knew writing his obituary with every post. Daniel rose suddenly, pacing, phone still in his grip. Emma stood quickly, startled. Daniel said, "Every word feels like a bullet, Emma." She stepped closer, saying, "You don't deserve this war." He laughed bitterly. "They think I do." The living room felt suffocating, storm roaring like a beast outside. Every headline replayed in his mind, a symphony of disgrace. Daniel stopped, staring at his medals on the table, his reflection in the tarnished metal mocking him. He whispered, "I gave everything, and this is what remains." Emma touched his arm gently, voice trembling, "You're more than their judgment." Daniel's eyes brimmed with fury and despair, torn between shattering and surrender. Morning light crept reluctantly through half-drawn curtains, dust swirling in the dimness. Daniel sat at the table, untouched coffee cooling beside him. Emma said, "You need to eat something." He shook his head, murmuring, "I can't taste food when I taste ash in my mouth." The air hung heavy, silence punctuated only by the occasional buzz of his muted phone. His eyes fell on a photograph of him and Jacob in uniform, a memory of brotherhood that felt like another lifetime. He whispered, I was someone once, Emma. Now I'm just noise to them. Emma leaned forward, voice trembling. You were never noise to me. Her words cracked the silence, but Daniel's gaze stayed fixed on the past. The man he once was slipping further away. Daniel's fingers brushed across the medals lying on the table, their weight a cruel reminder. He said, "These used to mean something." Emma whispered, "They still do." He looked at her sharply, voice edged with bitterness. "Not to them. To them, I'm a monster dressed as a hero." He clenched his jaw, struggling against the tears pressing at his eyes. Emma reached for his hand, her touch, soft, hesitant. She said, "They never knew your nights, your battles, the blood you gave." His lips quivered as he muttered, "They never cared to know." The clock ticked loudly, filling the space with its steady condemnation. His silence grew heavier, the weight of years collapsing onto this fragile morning. Daniel stood by the window, rain streaks staining the glass, his reflection fractured. He whispered, "I gave years of my life, and now strangers erase me with a hashtag." Emma approached slowly, her voice heavy with ache. "You gave them peace they'll never see." He shook his head violently. "Peace? I gave them silence, and silence forgot me." His shoulders slumped, his breath fogging the cold glass. Emma wrapped her arms around herself, unable to reach him fully. Daniel muttered, "When Jacob stopped calling, that was when I knew it was over." The pain in his voice cracked something raw in her, but she had no answer. The storm outside raged, echoing his collapse inside. Daniel sank into the armchair, body heavy, phone resting lifeless in his palm. Emma said softly, "What if you just let it go?" His hollow laugh cut through the silence. He whispered, "Letting go means they win." She stepped closer, pleading, "This isn't a war you can fight." He looked up at her, eyes haunted. "Every silence, every click, every whisper is another bullet, Emma. I can't surrender." Her lips parted but no words followed, tears filling her eyes. The hum of the refrigerator and the rain outside were the only sounds left, fragile reminders of ordinary life against extraordinary ruin. The silence between them was unbearable until Emma whispered, "You're still Daniel, not just their victim." His eyes lifted slowly, glassy with despair. He said, "I don't even recognize that name anymore." She knelt beside him, her voice trembling. "I do. I see the man who stood in storms and didn't break." His jaw tightened, a flicker of defiance surfacing, then drowned again by doubt. He whispered, "That man's gone, Emma. They buried him online, and no one came to the funeral." Her hand tightened on his knee, refusing to let him drift further. Outside, thunder rumbled, as though the world itself mourned with him. The morning paper lay on the doorstep, headline bold, "Hero or Hypocrite?" Daniel picked it up, hands shaking. Emma said, "Don't read it." But his eyes devoured the cruelty printed in black and white. His voice cracked, "Even strangers know my name, yet not my truth." He slammed the paper down, coffee splashing across the table, brown stains spreading like wounds. Emma whispered, "They'll move on, Daniel." He shook his head, rage and despair entwined. "Not until I'm destroyed." The phone buzzed again, an email notification, subject line cold and final, termination of sponsorship. His shoulders slumped, a piece of him breaking with each loss. Daniel read the email aloud, voice hollow, "Effective immediately, we are ending all partnerships." His lips trembled as he whispered, "They've erased me, Emma." She closed her eyes, muttering, "It's not you, it's fear." Daniel's fist clenched. Fear pays better than loyalty. His chest tightened, memory flashing of speeches he once gave with pride. Now, silence followed him everywhere. Emma placed her hand on his shoulder, but he shrugged it off, bitterness hardening his face. He said, "Even my name is poison." The rain outside had stopped, yet inside their home, the storm only worsened. The phone rang, Jacob's name flashing across the screen. Daniel's heart jolted. He answered quickly, voice shaking, "Jacob, please." The line went cold after a pause, silence heavier than words. Daniel stared at the dead phone, his breath ragged. Emma said softly, "He's scared." Daniel whispered. He was my brother, Emma. We fought together. His knuckles whitened around the phone, the betrayal cutting deeper than headlines ever could. He muttered, "Even war never left me this alone." The quiet of the room felt unbearable, his past comrades vanishing into shadows of survival. Later that day, his sister Sarah arrived, face pale, movements hesitant. She stood at the doorway, avoiding his gaze. Daniel said, "You came." Her silence was louder than words. Finally she whispered, "I can't be seen with you right now." His chest caved at her words, betrayal slicing deeper than any stranger's judgment. He whispered, "Family too?" Sarah's eyes brimmed with tears, but she didn't step closer. Emma said sharply, "He's still your brother." Sarah shook her head, retreating shame and fear in her trembling voice. "I can't risk it." Daniel stood frozen, watching her leave, the weight of abandonment sinking him further. That night, Daniel sat alone in the dark, the glow of the TV flashing headlines across his weary face. Disgraced veteran faces backlash. The anchor's voice echoed through the silence. Emma sat quietly nearby, her presence steady but powerless. Daniel muttered, "Every word feels like another bullet." His eyes were bloodshot, his body trembling with exhaustion. Emma whispered, "I'm still here." He turned to her, a broken smile flickering. "But for how long?" His voice cracked as tears finally spilled. The screen continued its merciless broadcast, reducing a life of sacrifice into a scandal to consume. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through endless headlines, when Emma's phone buzzed. She froze, eyes darting nervously. Daniel asked, "Who is it?" Her hesitation lingered too long. Finally she whispered, "It's from Michael?" Daniel's brow furrowed. "Michael from the office?" She nodded, guilt flickering. He grabbed the phone, his voice raw. "Why is he sending you links about me?" The message glowed. "Keep feeding them. He's almost finished." Daniel's chest tightened, breath shallow, betrayal tearing through him sharper than any insult online. He whispered, "You knew." Emma's tears brimmed, her silence an admission. Daniel pushed back from the table, chair scraping violently. His voice shook with rage. "All this time you were helping them." Emma stood reaching for him. "I didn't mean." He cut her off, shouting, "You betrayed me for Michael?" Her hands trembled, her voice breaking. "He said it would protect us if I distanced myself." Daniel's chest heaved, every word shattering his trust. He whispered bitterly, "You were my anchor, Emma, and you chose them." She reached for him again, but he recoiled as if burned. Daniel stumbled into the living room, grabbing the framed photo of him and Jacob in uniform. His voice cracked. "Even he abandoned me, and now you." Emma stepped into the doorway, tears streaming, whispering, "I never stopped caring." Daniel threw the photo to the ground, glass shattering across the floor. He roared, "Caring doesn't destroy someone you love." His voice echoed through the room like a battlefield. Emma fell silent, shoulders shaking as she covered her face. Daniel's breathing was ragged, his whole body trembling under the weight of betrayal. Later that night, Daniel sat alone on the couch, staring at his tarnished metals. The betrayal replayed in his mind, louder than the storm outside. He whispered, "Even my home was a battlefield." Emma sat on the stairs, shadows hiding her face, whispering weakly, "I was scared, Daniel." He didn't look at her, his voice hollow. "You handed me to them." She sobbed quietly, the distance between them growing like an abyss. The TV flickered with another cruel headline, a reminder of the storm she had helped fuel. A knock at the door broke the silence. Daniel opened it hesitantly to find Mark, an old colleague standing under the rain. Mark, male 50, weathered and stern, said, "You need to know the truth. This wasn't random." Daniel's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. Mark leaned in, voice low. "Michael's been pushing stories to the press. He wanted your contracts, your reputation." Daniel staggered back, the puzzle pieces falling into place. He whispered, "So it was never strangers, it was him." Mark's eyes hardened. "He's feeding the mob for his rise." Daniel's fists clenched, fury and betrayal colliding into a storm inside him. Daniel stormed into the living room, voice echoing, "Michael ruined everything, Emma." His chest heaved, fists clenched. Emma cried out, "I never wanted this." He shouted back, "You let him use you to destroy me." The storm outside rattled the windows, lightning splitting the sky like his anger splitting the room. Emma sobbed, "I was trying to protect us." His laugh was bitter, hollow. "You protected nothing. You buried me." His voice broke, eyes wild, veins pulsing at his neck. The house shook with tension, every word a dagger. He muttered, "I fought for strangers, bled for strangers, and strangers erased me with your help." Daniel grabbed his medals from the table, throwing them onto the floor. The metallic clatter echoed, sharp as gunfire. He roared, "These mean nothing now." Emma gasped, "They mean everything." He glared at her, eyes wet with rage. "To you, or to the man you fed to wolves?" His voice trembled as he sank to his knees, clutching his head. Emma knelt beside him, whispering, "I never stopped loving you." He pushed her away, voice cracking, "Love doesn't look like betrayal." His body shook violently, the weight of everything crushing him, his breath ragged, his soul at war with itself. The TV blared breaking news, Michael's face filling the screen, smiling confidently. The anchor's voice praised him as a rising figure who exposed corruption. Daniel's chest burned, fists slamming against the floor. He shouted, "He took my life to build his throne." Emma covered her mouth, sobbing. Daniel stood abruptly, eyes blazing. "I won't let him win." His breath was heavy, his body trembling with fury, his voice raw. "If the mob wants blood, they'll see mine, but they'll hear my truth first." Emma cried, "Daniel, please don't do this." His glare fixed on the screen, a man cornered, ready to break or rise. Daniel snatched his phone, opening social media live. His reflection stared back at him, broken yet defiant. He whispered, "You won't erase me without hearing me." Emma pleaded, "Daniel, think before you do this." He shook his head, eyes steel. "This is the only way left." The red recording light blinked, illuminating his face. He spoke, voice raw, "My name is Daniel Carter. You don't know me, though you've judged me. You took my service, my sacrifice, and turned it into shame. But I won't die in silence." His voice thundered into the void, reaching strangers who had condemned him unseen. The screen showed live comments flooding in, some cruel, some questioning. Daniel's voice trembled but grew stronger. "I bled for people who never knew my name. I gave years you will never understand. And now you erase me for lies." His breath shook, but his gaze burned with fire. Emma whispered in the background, "Daniel, stop before it destroys you." He lifted his chin, eyes wet yet unyielding. "It already did. Now they'll know it wasn't silence that killed me. It was betrayal." His words rang with finality, his body shaking, his face lit by defiance and despair. Daniel ended the live stream, silence flooding the room. His hands shook as he set the phone down. Emma whispered, "You said what they needed to hear." He stared at the blank screen, voice hollow, "Or what thou twist again." The storm had quieted, but the tension inside remained unbearable. Emma stepped closer, but he turned away, muttering, "Every truth feels like another wound now." He slumped into the couch, burying his face in his hands. Emma's tears fell freely, her voice trembling. "Daniel, you're still here, and that's enough for me." His shoulders shook, torn between collapse and survival. Morning came, the air heavy with stillness. Daniel walked into the kitchen, staring at the shattered glass from the photo of Jacob and himself. He whispered, "Even memories cut now." Emma gathered the pieces silently, blood pricking her finger on sharp edges. Daniel looked away, muttering, "It's fitting. Pain follows everything I touch." Emma said softly, "You're not pain, Daniel. You're human." His eyes flickered toward her, conflicted. He sighed. "Human is the one thing they won't allow me to be anymore." His voice trembled, burdened with a truth she couldn't erase. The doorbell rang again. Mark entered, his expression heavy. He said, "Michael's lies are unraveling. Someone leaked proof of his deals." Daniel blinked, disbelief crossing his face. Emma whispered, "Maybe the truth will come." Mark shook his head, grim. "But damage like this doesn't vanish. They'll remember the scandal more than the truth." Daniel slumped into the chair, muttering, "So even when lies fall, I still remain buried." Emma's hand found his, whispering, "Not to me." His eyes brimmed with tears, torn between a flicker of hope and the certainty of scars. Daniel stepped outside for the first time in days. The sky was gray, the streets wet from last night's storm. Neighbors watched quietly from their porches, whispers hanging in the air. He kept his gaze low, his chest tightening under their stares. Emma walked beside him, steady and firm. Daniel muttered, "Every eye feels like judgment." She whispered, "Or maybe it's curiosity." He shook his head. "Curiosity still kills." His breath clouded in the chill, his steps heavy. Yet for the first time, he wasn't alone in the silence, Emma's presence anchoring him against the weight of shame. That evening, Daniel sat in his chair, medals on the table before him. He whispered, "They'll never see me as more than what they chose." Emma sat close, her voice steady, "I see you, that's enough." His eyes glistened, lips quivering. He said, "Enough for you, maybe, but not for me." He reached for the medals, running his fingers over the tarnished metal. His reflection stared back, weary, broken, yet still alive. He whispered, "I may never reclaim my name, but I'll live knowing I spoke my truth." Emma placed her hand over his, sealing the moment in fragile silence. Daniel stood on the porch as night settled, the quiet heavier than any storm. Emma whispered behind him, "You don't have to face them anymore." His eyes stayed fixed on the horizon, voice low, "They already live inside me." The street was empty, yet he felt thousands of eyes staring through unseen screens. His chest rose and fell sharply, haunted by voices he couldn't silence. Emma reached the doorway, her voice breaking, "Come back inside." He muttered, "I'm not sure I belong anywhere anymore." The silence lingered, cruel and endless, like a sentence without end. Inside, the television replayed Michael's interview, his smile smug, his lies polished. Daniel's jaw tightened, fists clenching at his sides. Emma turned off the screen, whispering, "He doesn't deserve your last thoughts." Daniel stared at the black screen, his reflection faint. He said, "Then what do I deserve?" Emma's voice broke, "Peace." His eyes softened briefly, then darkened again. He muttered, "Peace feels like something I never earned." His voice trembled with shame and longing, the weight of battles both past and present crushing him. Daniel retreated to the bedroom, medals laid out on the dresser like ghosts of victories past. He picked one up, staring at his blurred reflection in its tarnished surface. Emma entered softly, her voice trembling. "They don't define you." Daniel whispered, "They were all I had left." He set the medal down with trembling fingers, his body shaking. Emma reached for him, but he stepped back, whispering, "If even truth dies in silence, what's left of me?" His voice cracked as though something inside him finally broke, leaving only fragments. Daniel sank onto the edge of the bed, hands pressed over his face. Emma knelt before him, whispering fiercely, "You're more than their judgment. You're still Daniel." He lowered his hands, tears streaking his face, whispering, "But I'm also the man erased by lies." Emma held his hands tightly, her tears falling on them. The silence between them was unbearable, thick with grief and love. Daniel whispered, "They'll remember the scandal, not the man." Emma's voice cracked, "Then let me be the one who remembers the man." His body trembled, as though pulled between despair and fragile hope. The next morning, Daniel stood alone at the window, dawn light breaking over a horizon of gray skies, the clouds heavy like unspoken judgment. His shoulders were slumped, his breath shallow, and the faint reflection staring back at him in the glass looked like a stranger, hollow-eyed, lined with exhaustion, stripped of certainty. Behind him, Emma stirred quietly, the creak of the bed frame soft against the suffocating silence, but Daniel did not turn. He whispered to the cold glass, "They erased me, but I'll carry myself as proof I once lived." His voice lingered in the room like a fragile echo, both broken and unyielding, a whisper of defiance refusing to vanish. Emma closed her eyes where she sat, tears sliding down her cheeks with the quiet grace of grief, her hands tightening into fists against the bedsheets. The house was still, the storm outside long gone, yet within its walls the thunder remained, carried in his words, etched into their silence. One truth pressed itself into the moment: his life was a story carved not by triumph, but by sacrifice, betrayal, and survival, ending without applause, without forgiveness, only with a silence destined to haunt.